got it, I was up there earlier with Nancy and went over the minutes from one little typographical. And that was good.
Second.
What is that number?
208.
Yeah, that's it. That was motion, you made a motion?
No, I seconded
Second.
yours.
Okay, I was just counting. But I will make a motion to approve it.
I'll second that again.
Okay. John,
Yes.
EJ,
Yes. Well, we had a couple folks called in, wanted to address the board tonight. They're not here yet. If they come in, we'll certainly make room for them. So we'll move to scheduled reports, and we'll start with zoning from Mr. Frank Kitco.
You should all have a report, their activity for June, processed 10 applications for 10 permits. Again, leading the pack was accessory buildings. Between the two sizes of accessory buildings today, we're at 17, that's quite a few. Do have some additions as well. We do have a case coming next week at the Board of Appeals, will be kind of interesting. Other than that, that's all I have.
Any questions for Mr. Kitco regarding zoning? And our Township Highway Superintendent is here tonight. That's Mr. Emmett Gordon.
Auburn Township Road Department report for June 2019. Preparations continued for our 2019 capital improvement projects. Ditching and culvert pipe replacement were done on Stafford Road and Woodacre Trail. Last week I did have the pre-construction meeting for the paving of various roads within Auburn Township, and an agreed starting date is July 15th for the repairs to begin, and then paving soon thereafter. And once again, that is Sugar and Valley paving that did get that contract. I do have one additional cross culvert pipe on Stafford Road to do, and there'll be a road closure there sometime next week. That'll all be posted well in advance. We did have additional requested ditching, which was completed on Brittany Woods and Queensway as well. I did have a lot of requests due to the rainy June for people with their ditching and drainage issues. High burn was removed on Quinn Road and Bartholomew Road to allow the rainwaters to sheet off into the ditches instead of pooling on the roadway. Those are the two spots where the water is kept to the road, and we did take care of that. We did experience some localized flooding on the 5th, 13th, and 20th, and as during the June rains. Some repair was needed as the waters did begin to undermine a portion of Fox Road. And what had happened there is the drainage channel crept to the road through the erosion process and worked its way under the edge of the road there. We did take 5 tons of #1 gravel to stabilize and shore it and repair the road edge and ditch. And after those rains, we did go back and check, and it's still intact. We did have 2 down trees which were removed from the roadways, one on Taylor Main, the other one on Stafford. And that was during a couple of those storms. With the amount of water that we did have, we have experienced an unusual amount of sediment moving through the ditches that will need to be taken care of as well. The repairs that we did last year in Auburn Springs, so we did go down there and visit that. We didn't have any water at all cresting the road at any point in that subdivision. So the drainage tweaks that we did there is per the recommendation of the Geauga County engineer did work. So I'm very thankful for that because that section of road did take a hit at the entrance to the cul-de-sac there. And there's a lot of degradation to the road base of the road surface as well. We had 1 full internment at Shadyside Cemetery for the month, and that was it. For the cemeteries, they did go up. You guys are talking about the markings, the surveying out there that has been done. I do have some equipment that we've been looking at, and Mr. Everly, he came down, and PJ came down as well. And I think we'll have a determination here within the next week as far as what we decide. Yeah, that's all I got.
I was just gonna follow up,
Yes, sir.
we've had demos on some loaders that we're thinking to replace the A62. And I think the A62 has reached the end of its useful life to Auburn Township.
What year is that, a 78?
I believe it's a 78.
Yeah.
And we had an initial purchase price on that when we traded another piece of equipment of $10,000.
What did we trade on that?
We had an old case backhoe that
Wasn't
was
that case
pretty much
580?
broke in town,
Yeah,
and we
580.
had
The
a,
Massey Ferguson, which had no brakes, no
Didn't have Nancy first.
Yeah, the Massey
Industrial.
went there.
so I think we traded it, it was, the guy was asking 15,000, and we traded him this junk, and he came and picked it all up.
I remember the deal.
And so we ended up paying 10,
Mhm.
and so it was, really served us well. It's,
I think we got 13 years out of it.
13
12,
years.
13 years, yeah.
and that's pretty darn good for less than. And that did go out in a couple, like 2 snowstorms, I think,
So we
so,
did put down the road, I think more than 2. There's several times with the drifting, yeah.
for that breakup drifting, I can recall 2 exactly myself. But, so, anyway, I think it's time to step up, and we found that, I have to tell you, Mike and he's really done a job of, well, everybody, but he's been leading it, to bring in and, scope out all the various options out there, and, I think my feeling and their feeling was is that with a loader, and we're gonna keep this for 20, 25 years, it'd be nice to start off with a new machine. And that many of the ones that are that are out there are, they've been used and put through the paces. So, they've done a real good job so far of negotiating and reviewing what's available and what's good for us, and
Yeah, I was surprised by how dissimilar those two were. A lot of differences there. For, the machine does the same thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things, PJ, that we're really focusing on is the ability to maintain and clean the equipment, because one of its dedicated functions is to stack salt. And you put equipment in that salt dome and stack in the salt, there's a lot of residual that creeps in there even with the dust in that. And one of the ones that they were looking at was wide open as far as the drivetrain transmission, the ability to get out under there and clean, which is really
Salt's
important
in
for
there
us.
for
yeah.
road.
Oh, the salt's gonna find the corners that you can't get to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And we've managed to maintain the pieces that we have had that we put into the salt for all these years, so, that's really important for us to be able to maintain the piece.
I just wanted to touch too on, Emmerich, you mentioned briefly there the survey. The survey that we had asked to have done is along Washington Street to determine exactly where is the property line because of the project that the county has in mind to put, get rid of the curb on the south side and put open ditches there. And we came to find out that the fence is 3 inches or so from the line.
On our side. On our
Yeah,
side.
it's on our side,
Yes.
however, in talking to, we right now, there's there's graves that are plotted within 12 inches of the fence. It doesn't make any sense, and so I think we need to abandon that first row of graves that would be west of the driveway.
Well, grave sites.
Yeah, there's
Is there any
nobody
current-
there.
No current graves.
No current
Is
graves,
within
yeah.
that 12 inches, I
All
hope.
grave sites,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
graves available, I don't know. They don't come with people in them,
We
so.
don't wanna go like
Oh,
Chardon, we don't wanna go like Chardon Township and start.
So anyway, that would pick up another 8 feet almost. And that would also give us a border that if you needed to drive the mini excavator along the fence or the northern cemetery, you could. And,
I think one of the things that needs to be revealed to us as well is the construction limits, to see how far back they are coming. Right now, this, we have the right.
you can't pass the road right away.
Right,
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to where the construction limits are in that section there.
It sounds like that fence is gonna be the start of the back slope of the ditch.
It
though.
is.
Yeah.
You're exact, that's where I was leading to, so, as we look at something to replace or reinstall that border, the code requires, as you know, you have some kind of a delineation that you're in a cemetery from a cemetery, and it can be many different things, but it has to be discernible. And we do have a tentative schedule here for having Todd Lamb come and do that, the U.
The first set, right, yeah.
And it's not a very, to be honest with you, it's not a very big project to get hammered out, but it's just something that if it just, if we get dry weather for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, we could get,
We
catch
have
up
that-
a little
We have
bit.
that slated for the end of August.
Yeah, our biggest
About-
thing right now, of course, is to get everything prepped for the contracted. You got $900,000 worth of contracts. We've got 4 miles of road contracted out here, so we gotta be prepared when they're ready to rock in, come in. And right now, we also gave the contractor a 2-week grace period at the end of the contract.
To the weather.
Due to the weather, yeah.
Due to weather. And most likely, though, the asphalt will be down, it may be the striping or the something, I don't know. But they'll be finishing up at the end of that period, so I don't think that should cause us any problems. So, I think that's everything you did from that meeting, isn't it, Em?
Yes, sir.
You went up and Emmerich went up and did the pre-cons.
As long as I still got you here, Emmerich, we advertised 2 weeks ago for some seasonal help with running and operating the roadside mower, and as of 10:30 this morning, we had no applicants. Emmerich and I talked about it briefly, and you had some opinion sent along to you that
Well-
perhaps that was, we were asking for overqualification.
Well, I was talking with just a couple of people that had called me and inquired about it, and one of the things that they're talking about is to run a tractor, do you need a Class B or a license to run a piece of equipment? No, you don't, but to move a truck, you do.
That's exactly what we discussed in the office when we were doing the ad.
And I don't know if, for someone younger, if that's a deterrent, or someone older that doesn't carry it any longer.
To me, I think it's still wise to, every guy that works in that department has that
Right.
CDL.
There's gonna be a situation come up,
Mhm.
you gotta move the truck.
But you have to move a
Or
truck,
something.
yeah.
There's gonna be.
And that was our discussion,
Yeah.
is why you need it, because if inadvertently we have a piece in the way you can't squeak out, then you have to move a truck, we're not there.
Then that's when you have an accident, and then no thermos says, oh, by the way, this guy didn't even got a
Right.
license.
I was just asked about,
Well, you
I
usually don't
I
unless
don't
you're
have a
risking
B,
it.
does that keep me out of
Yeah,
the running, or if I fill an application out, so. We did advertise that you need that, and that was the scenario that I reiterated, that
Yeah,
you
and
need to move something, so.
it's a likely scenario, really.
Right,
Guy's gonna be around the shop for when we're busy and we're short-handed, because that's why we're doing this. And it's, there's probably gonna say, hey, could you go move that truck?
was today the cutoff date?
Today was the cutoff date.
Do we we want to entertain the idea of running it one more week, or?
I think we're gonna have to.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to. I can't envision a scenario where a guy without if we hired somebody without a CDL is gonna have to stand aside and not get the mower out because the truck's parked and he can't get out the door.
Right,
You know what I mean? So, hesitant to remove that, what do you think?
I agree 100% when we put that qualification on there. I mentioned it when we were talking that night, and that's just because Emmerich mentioned it to me.
Yeah, we don't have a garage of 20 people up there, or 15 or 10 or.
Well, what if the guy started, exactly what the scenario you just said is, what if the guy's starting time is different than, I mean, we're not gonna be mowing at 6:30 in the morning.
Typically not, but you're prepping, you're sharpening blades, you're greasing, it gets.
But what if
maintenance
you
every
guys
time
are
it goes
gone out and then I have to send somebody back to?
Well, that's the,
Yeah.
that's the point of contention, you know, where you're gonna interrupt us, am I in the middle of asphalt, and I can't get back, you know, so.
Let's leave that in there.
Let's
I'm
leave
not
it in
really
there.
ready to take that out of there yet. And, I'm not sure that I'll ever be ready to take that out of there.
Okay, we'll run the same ad then. Suppose we could put pay commensurate with experience, was that the first time? I think we probably should be, like, get somebody's attention. Anybody else, anything for Emmerich Gordon, with regards to roads? Thanks again, Emmerich. We'll move to trustee reports, and John, that'd be you.
Mr. Gordon thoroughly covered most every subject that I could come up with. That I will say, we've been very busy with all of the rain, and I'm pleased to say that our road infrastructure seems to be handling this. We had a couple of little small washouts. That's to be expected. There was 3 inches of rain dropped down that part of the township that
Right, that's
day.
what wiped it out, right?
So, that's a lot of water, and, you know, again, we don't have, we just were reviewing all of our roads today. We just don't have a whole bunch of potholes and big blowouts in the roads, and I think that's a tribute a little bit to keeping up on this ditching. And yes, we have a little bit of silt here and there, but I was over with the guys on Wood Acre, and I want to comment on one thing. The cleanup work that we have to go do from that ditching project, absolutely zero. And that's the mini. It's like a surgeon's tool. And in the past, we might have a few hours to go back and clean up a little bit. And there's 2 nice things. It's quiet, and I was there for less than 45 minutes, and we'd already gone almost 400 feet. And that was just really impressive. And then we were also, the problem we're having this year is you're digging out soup all the time.
Yeah, and as you were aware, the scenario over in Wood Acres where we had the electric and Spectrum.
Yes, true.
I actually had a call from USG, which never happens, and the marker guy said, be careful digging, you have electric and communications right in the ditch, center line of the ditch, back, forward, everywhere, so.
And wasn't there a gas line on it for one point there?
There's gas line there, but yeah.
Yeah, Right there, it kind of came up to that one residence.
Right, the gas people are pretty good. Spectrum, I actually was very surprised that it was almost mimicking suddenly or actually Starberry. There's
Only a
where
couple inches
we
in the
we
ground.
have, and then the repairs that came, they looped them over the top of the ditch. And I have to write to them, make sure that they bury those, because the next time, we wanna make sure that, typically we don't oops like we did there, but we had already gotten into Spectrum a couple times, and I had 4 more properties that go across, and we just saw wires on top of the ground, so it's like this, so we oopsed it out, and we're able to find everything there.
But other than that, I think I'll yield any further time I'm allowed.
Okay. Thanks again, Emery. I have very little to report either, other than Nancy's collected a couple more estimates on the electrical work that is gonna get done up at Adam Hall. The primary goal is to do something with heat tapes for ice prevention. I don't wanna deal with that tonight, so. We'll get 3 or 4 competitive before it's over, and do what we do there. I think our neighbors that wanted to talk about things aren't in yet, so we will move on to Fred.
All right. Should we vote on the budget?
Yes, we should.
Okay. Resolution.
This is a deja vu party.
Resolution 2019-19, adopting the budget of Auburn Township for fiscal year beginning January 1, 2020. Be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of Auburn Township, Geauga County, Ohio, that the following township budget for fiscal year 2020 is hereby adopted as shown below. And that's it.
Okay.
I move we adopt the 2020 budget.
And I'll second it.
John,
Yes.
PJ,
Yes.
all right.
It's so nice, we voted twice.
Have your regular reports in front of you, your appropriation summary report, revenue summary report, fund summary report, and payment listing of warrants 5245 through 5264, totaling $44,086.03. I also have another resolution. We need to transfer some money out of the general fund into the fire levy fund, and I'll explain that when I read the resolution. Resolution 2019-18. It reads, in 2018, Auburn Township received insurance proceeds in the amount of $76,000 from Public Entity Risk Services of Ohio on a claim for wind damage to the fire station. The township now desires to move these funds to the Fire Levy Fund 2191. Be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of Auburn Township, Geauga County, Ohio, that the following transfer of funds and supplemental appropriations be made. $76,000 transferred from the general fund to the Fire Levy Fund, and a supplemental appropriation of $76,000 to Fire Levy Fund account 2191 760 740 machinery and equipment. So we got the money last year. We need to do some housekeeping to
That
put
was
it in.
that November storm of 17.
Yeah, put it in the fund it should go into.
I'll make a motion to adopt that.
I'll
That's a
second
resolution.
that.
It's a resolution
I'll make a
2019-18.
motion to adopt. John seconded.
John,
Yes.
PJ,
Yes.
that's all I have.
Okay, just, Emmerich, I think everybody's aware that there's been a request for, well, what we would call the yellow signs, a warning sign, for, the it covers a myriad of possibilities. Slow children playing is one. Neighborhood block watch, I think those were out for a while. There's been a request for one, and Emmerich done some research on, county opinion, state opinions on how to address that. I think we're gonna address that at the next meeting. Probably should be a policy in place on such things. It's treated a little differently than it was 30 years ago.
We do have a policy in place that I'm gonna say, not many years ago, but a few years ago, we adopted the state of Ohio manual.
Well, the federal manual you have to use, I think you're talking about the highway use
The
manual.
highway use manual, that's.
Yeah, that's a different
Pretty
manual.
thick, and if anything, that changes as the years go. Some things are in, some things are out. It's interesting, and I've referred to this in past meetings, and so has Emmerich. We sat in here with NOACA, and the discussion was this corner right here. There was, what was there, like 12 people here from NOACA? And the amount of detail that they have on timing of lights and placement of signs and is very, very, very in-depth. It's not just, yeah, let's do this. Basic boiling down the discussion is that it's a very common problem is over signage. And over signage leads to people ignoring all the signs. And that's a human nature study that they have. And there was a lot of discussion of these cars coming down these hills, both of these hills, and how do you address it, and blah, blah, blah. And it was interesting. The decision that was put forth was that you could oversign this. And I think two signs or one sign and a sign, I know that was adequate. If you put other signs, it would be over signage. Something that I think we need to also be cognizant when people request signs.
These aren't necessarily traffic control, this is more of an awareness
Right.
kind of thing.
Well, one of
Once
the-
again, you can be
Yeah,
aware.
Emmerich has an interesting take on that.
Well, the one thing is that, first of all, the manual of uniform traffic control devices has to do with conforming signage throughout the entire United States, not just the county, Ohio, or the townships. They do revise this every so often. I think the last revision was 2009. As even some of the vernacular that appears on the signs, hidden drives now limited sight distance, there's no more dead end, it's no outlet, things like that. The sign that PJ's referring to that I was asked to install is a non-conforming sign. Ergo, I just can't go get a custom sign made with tax people's dollars to protect an individual. Most of the all the signage is out there is to protect the traveling public. One of the things is your tractor sign is a current icon sign that appears in the manual. A lot of people have the misinformation as, we're protecting this guy from getting hit. No,
No offense that we were trying to save you.
right,
PJ.
is to inform the traveling public that there may be a slow-moving vehicle in the road. It's to protect the traveling public. This type of sign, I can't just willy-nilly and go put it up. The board has to decide to spend these tax dollars on the sign and determine, as a courtesy or whatever you guys.
Right, and ODOT's got something that we're looking at, and they cite a couple of studies that,
Right.
scientific studies that
Right.
on that specific situation.
Well, one of the things is there's actually a statutory time limit that some municipalities in their policy do, like you can only have it until the child is 13 years old, then it has to be removed. Another thing is a privacy issue. Does that person want the traveling public to know that I have, I'm hearing impaired or I'm sight impaired? These are the things that you have to take into consideration.
Well,
Just can't be erected and
let's work on this amongst the board and Nancy, and you're certainly involved, and get this in resolution form
Yeah,
for the next meeting.
that'd be good, because that helps me out as well as with requests and that.
Used to be, 30 years, 25 years ago, you asked them, and signs went up. I mean, like I said, neighborhood block watch, and just about, they covered the whole gamut. And then they figured out everybody's ignoring them anyway, so.
Right.
I don't know how many slow children at play signs were on some of our side roads, and you couldn't even see them because of trees and bushes that grown all around them.
Right, and if you remember, we did have an instance over in, I believe it was Waterford in 2006 or 7. We received some communication through their HOA requesting those slow children to play signs, and the determination to the county was, you don't want children playing in the it's a public thoroughfare. You get a false sense of security, you know, having those signs up, well, my kids will be okay to ride their bikes or play ball on the street, but it's not so.
Well,
And these are all, what's our designation, Emmerich? Our
Low volume.
low
We're
volume.
typically low volume.
These are low volume public highways. So,
all right, well, we'll get that in some resolution
Okay.
type form for the next meeting, put it on the agenda. Okay, anything else? Any public comment?
4th of July parade coming up,
Yeah, probably should have read that.
starts at noon.
That's gonna be on July 4th this year.
Yes.
Oh boy, when's that, this week?
I was
Yeah,
looking at the
it's
calendar,
over.
there's this holiday this
They're
week.
ready
I'm
for
like,
it.
Uh,
Also, Custom Fireworks is on Friday the 5th,
That's
starting at 6 o'clock.
Yep, thanks, chief. See everybody there. I think we're doing our Adam Hall concert on the 6th of August. It's around the corner too. Once again, anybody else public comment? Going once or twice? I will make the motion, all motions.
I'll second it.
John,
Yes, sir.
PJ,
Yes.